The hunter-jumper world is once again at the center of controversy, and this time the legal battle could change the future of SafeSport forever. Veteran equitation trainer and show jumping trainer Frank Madden is asking a federal court for a preliminary injunction that could allow him to return to coaching while his SafeSport case continues. Whether you support him, oppose him, or feel conflicted about the entire situation, one thing is becoming clear. This is no longer just another equestrian scandal. This case is turning into one of the biggest legal fights the sport has seen in years. Because now the conversation is bigger than Frank Madden himself. It's about SafeSport, athlete protection, due process, and whether a private organization should have the power to publicly suspend someone before a final ruling is reached. The horse world is deeply divided over where that line should be drawn. So in today's video, we're breaking down everything you need to know about the Frank Madden SafeSport lawsuit, the request for a preliminary injunction, what it means for the future of equestrian sport, and why this case could have consequences far beyond the hunter-jumper industry. Because regardless of where you stand, this story is forcing the equestrian world to confront some very uncomfortable questions. Frank Madden has long been considered one of the most influential figures in American hunter-jumper sport. For decades, he built a reputation as one of the top equestrian trainers in the United States, coaching medal final winners, junior champions, and successful professionals at the highest level of the sport. He also held important leadership roles within the U.S. equestrian development programs and was viewed by many as part of the sport's elite establishment. That's why the reaction was so explosive when the U.S. Center for SafeSport placed Madden in its disciplinary database over allegations involving sexual misconduct connected to incidences reportedly dating back decades. Almost immediately, the equestrian community split into opposing camps. Some riders and industry insiders defended SafeSport's actions, arguing that athletic protection must come first, even when allegations are old or involve powerful figures in the sport. Others raised serious concerns about due process, fairness, and whether temporary suspensions can unfairly destroy careers before investigations are fully resolved. And now that debate is moving into federal court. According to reports surrounding the lawsuit, Frank Madden's legal team argues that SafeSport exercises extraordinary power without providing constitutional level protections for the accused. That is a massive claim, because SafeSport was originally created after years of abuse scandals across Olympic and amateur sports. They exposed failures by governing bodies to properly protect athletes. The organization was intended to provide an independent investigation system for handling allegations involving sexual misconduct, abuse, harassment, and athlete safety concerns. For many people, SafeSport became necessary precisely because sports organizations had historically failed victims. But critics of the system have increasingly argued that SafeSport's authority has expanded to a point where accusations alone can permanently damage reputations, even before final decisions are reached. That criticism is at the heart of the Frank Madden lawsuit. Now, it's important to make something very clear. At this stage, allegations are still allegations. A lawsuit is not proof that SafeSport acted improperly, and accusations are not proof of guilt. This case is still unfolding in court, but the legal arguments themselves are drawing national attention because they challenge how SafeSport fundamentally operates. One of the biggest developments is Madden's request for a preliminary injunction. So what does that exactly mean? A preliminary injunction is essentially a request asking the court to temporarily intervene before the larger case is resolved. In simple terms, Madden is asking the judge to temporarily stop the effects of SafeSport's restrictions while the constitutional challenge moves through the legal system. If granted, the injunction could potentially allow him to return to coaching activities before the full case is decided. And that possibility has created intense debate throughout the equestrian world. Supporters of Madden see this as a critical moment for due process rights in the sport. They argue that once someone's name is publicly listed in the SafeSport database, the consequences are immediate and devastating. Clients leave, sponsors disappear, businesses collapse. Reputational damage can become permanent regardless of the final outcome. Critics of the current system say temporary suspensions can function like career-ending punishments, long before a case is fully adjudicated. But others strongly reject that argument. Many athletes advocate SafeSport exists because sport organizations repeatedly failed to protect vulnerable athletes in the past. They argue that waiting for criminal convictions or lengthy court proceedings can leave the athletes exposed to ongoing harm. They also warn that weakening SafeSport's authority could discourage victims from coming forward. That's why this issue has become so emotionally charged, because both sides believe they are defending something extremely important. One side emphasizes athlete safety. The other emphasizes fairness and constitutional protections. And honestly, this may be one of the hardest debates in modern sports governance, especially in equestrian sport. The power dynamics inside the horse world can become incredibly intense. Young riders are often depend heavily on trainers not just for lessons, but for horse access, networking opportunities, sponsorship connections, and competitive advancement. That creates environments where abuse can happen, but it also creates environments where accusations alone can completely destroy careers and livelihoods. And now, federal courts may end up deciding where the balance between those competing concerns should exist. What makes this story even more important is that the Frank Madden case is not happening in isolation. SafeSport has faced growing scrutiny across multiple Olympic sports in recent years. There have been ongoing debates about transparency, arbitration procedures, investigation timelines, confidentiality rules, and whether accused individuals receive sufficient opportunities to defend themselves before sanctions become public. Some athletic advocacy groups support SafeSport's mission while still criticizing aspects of its implementation. Others argue the system remains essential despite imperfections. And now, the Madden lawsuit is bringing those tensions directly into the courtroom. The outcome could potentially affect far more than just one equestrian trainer. If courts determine that aspects of SafeSport's procedures violate constitutional protections, the impact could ripple across Olympic sports in the United States. That's why so many people are closely watching this case. Emotionally, the reaction inside the horse world has been intense. Online discussions have been deeply polarized. Some people believe Frank Madden is standing up against a system with too much unchecked authority. Others believe attempts to weaken SafeSport threaten athlete safety and accountability. Many riders seem caught somewhere in the middle, deeply uncomfortable with parts of both arguments. Honestly, that discomfort reflects a larger crisis happening throughout equestrian sport right now. Because this isn't just about SafeSport. The horse world has spent years dealing with growing questions surrounding governance, transparency, horse welfare, abuse allegations, judging controversies, and public trust. We've seen scandals involving training methods, questions surrounding horse welfare, controversies involving elite riders and trainers, growing criticism of governing bodies, and now legal battles involving SafeSport itself. All of it points towards a deeper reality. Equestrian sport is going through a massive identity crisis. People are questioning institutions they once trusted automatically. And once trust starts breaking down, every controversy becomes even more explosive. Some people no longer trust governing bodies. Others no longer trust the establishment. Some don't trust SafeSport, while others believe SafeSport is the only thing protecting athletes from a system that historically protected powerful insiders. That creates an incredibly volatile environment where every major case becomes emotionally overwhelming. For the entire sport, as of now, the federal court has not issued a final ruling on Frank Madden's request for a preliminary injunction. Court filings show that SafeSport has responded to the motion as the legal battle continues. So this story is still developing, but depending on what happens next, the consequences could be enormous. If the injunction is denied, many people view that as a reinforcement of SafeSport's authority. But if it's granted, the reaction throughout Olympic sport could be explosive, because it could signal that courts are willing to seriously question at least some aspects of how SafeSport currently operates. And regardless of the outcome, this case has already forced the equestrian world into a difficult conversation it can no longer avoid. How do you protect athletes from abuse while also protecting fairness and due process? How much authority should organizations like SafeSport have? And where should the line between athlete safety and constitutional rights actually be drawn? Those questions are not going away anytime soon. And honestly, the future of equestrian sport may depend on how those questions are answered. And remember, I am not AI. If you listen closely, you can hear me breathing.